This episode of Outside Insights is brought to you by Placers, a values-led staffing partner helping businesses and individuals reach their highest potential. Build a flexible workforce or take the next step in your career at myplacers.com. Welcome to Outside Insights. I'm Chris Burkhard, and today I'm excited to sit down with not Bob Moesta, but Bobby Moesta, and we'll get into that in a second. He's co-creator of the Jobs to Be Done framework. He's co-authored many books. It's prolific. I really want to try to pin him down and talk about the Jobs to Be Done framework around careers in the co-authored book about job moves, the 9 steps for making progress in your career. Bob, I've spent 35 years at this intersection of careers and hiring. And for many, life is about getting a new job. Yet it's so hard for all of us to do this, right? First of all, thank you for being here, but I'd love to know how you stumbled into this research for this book.
Yeah. So it started actually almost like 15, 16 years ago. I started doing research. There was a gentleman at the Harvard Business School named Ethan Bernstein, who was Clay Christensen was his PhD advisor. Clay and I have a relationship for over 27 years. And so eventually Ethan came to me and said, "Hey, have you ever tried to apply Jobs to Be Done to careers?" And I'd been coaching people for a long time, but it was one of those things where I just never put the two together. And collaborating with them, I kind of realized, like, people do choose, kind of their employers, and that they choose when to leave, and they choose when they want to go, and they choose what they want to do next. And so it just gave me this whole new lens around kind of careers, is to say that people, the way I say it is, employees hire companies more than companies hire employees. But the problem is they don't feel agency. They don't feel like they have the ability to choose. And so part of it is to actually use the framework, which is, I've been studying for over 50 years, basically, why do people change and what do people do and why do they do it, and turning that into product. And so it's almost like turning yourself or turning an employee into a product and saying, like, what job do they do in somebody else's life? And it's really understanding that. So it's gone full circle, because it was really about products. And now I've turned it back to actually helping people find better work, which is great.
So the difference between you and mine is anecdotal, casual study, doing the job, and yours is research-based. And I find that has a big element to help people feel comfortable with your conclusions, but also comfortable with the tools and ideas that you put forward.
Well, part of it is I'm not a researcher by design I'm an engineer, and I like to build things, but I don't like to build bad things. And so I've had to become a researcher to understand those things. And so we start out by just studying what causes people to say today's the day that they're literally looking for a new job, or that they decide to quit this job, and how do they choose the next thing. And so we studied over 1,000 people, like everything from, McDonald's to Chipotle, and from, being a lawyer to becoming a judge, and just about everything in between. And it's like, what are the patterns that we saw in this? And we end up seeing 4 very distinct patterns that, to be honest, I have lived in my life. And that they're not attuned to any one person. It's almost attuned to where you are in your life, and what context you're in, and what outcomes you want. Like, the job that I wanted when I was 30 is very different than the job I want when I'm 55. And ultimately it's because my context is very different. And ultimately the fact is I'm willing to make different trade-offs along the way.
Bobby, do you know how many 55-year-olds that can't relate to the fact that they're still chasing the 30-year-old job, though?
Yeah.
And
I can understand that.
So the 4, are they the quests?
Yeah, we call them the quests. Yeah, there's 4 quests. It was hard to say jobs of jobs. So we talked about 4 quests that people find themselves on. And they're the first one is get out, right? And this is a situation where, like, you're being pressured by your boss. The fact is you don't really like what you're doing. The fact is it's you've had turnover in some way. So for example, you're on your 3rd boss in 4 years. Like, there's just a bunch of stuff going on, and you start to realize, like, this just isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. And usually people who are in get out how, I think of it as it tends to skew to the earlier years in your life because it's a job you got, and then you kind of realize like, yeah, this isn't for me. I got to get out. But you have no notion of what you want to do, but you know you don't want to do this.
Okay.
Right. And so it's more push than it is pull in terms of what to do next. Right. And so what happens is these people, you really want to help them actually when they're in this quest, like, I got to get out of here. You want them to slow down. You want them to take a step back. You want them to take inventory of what kind of gives them energy and what sucks their energy, and start to actually have them prototype different possibilities, because the
Yeah,
majority
but
of people.
Bobby, I just want to apply to jobs. I just want you to fix my resume. Like,
Yeah,
let
yeah, yeah. So the real danger with this one is you end up wanting to leave so bad that you actually take a job that's worse than the job you have now. And so
what's
this
that?
is a
Oh,
really
yeah.
delicate place to be, because at some point, like, it's so bad, it's like, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. I gotta leave. Like, you literally, you take the whatever first offer comes in, you take.
I
And
heard that
this.
called a jobcation job.
Yeah, so we talk about where in this job, you're better off taking a jobcation here, which is like a vacation that's a job that you can do with one hand tied behind your back. You can do it very well. You're very well appreciated, but it gives you a chance to step back and really start to take inventory. So, like, for me, yeah, in 2004, I was running a private equity firm. I had $25 million under management. I was doing mostly turnarounds, and I hated it. And, my wife came to me. I had 4 kids at the time. And she basically said, look, enough is enough. You're traveling, hundreds of thousands of miles, and you're never home. And, you don't like what you're doing. You should try to figure out something else. So I went and found a. I said, how do I go find a job that I can't, I don't have to travel much for? And it turns out that I ended up partnering and becoming a builder of homes. So I built 1,000 homes in 4 years. It was something I could do with one hand tied behind my back. I had to learn the business, but like the whole notion of selling and designing product and being able to kind of, make that all work. It was like I could work 40 hours, 50 hours a week. I could actually, reignite with my family, and just kind of like, for 4 years, I had this jobcation where I made enough money. I wasn't about making a lot of money, but it was about just basically making sure that I repaired the relationships in my life, that basically, and got myself healthy, that allowed me to kind of get back and say, all right, now it's time to move on to something else.
But in the study of that company, you applied the jobs to be done framework to the selling process
Yes, I did.
and figured out that the best sales is really, I'm going to, my own language,
Yeah, yeah.
solving the customer's problems to get
That's right.
them to make a move.
That's right. That's right. It
Uh,
was it was it was like it was like shooting fish in a barrel, to be honest, because think of this, how many people wanted to move but couldn't, because they can't wrap their head around it. And so we built these things called solution teams that literally would sit down and talk about, your current house, what were you actually envisioning for your life after in the next house, what were some of the trade-offs you're willing to make, and then ultimately giving you 3 or 4 houses to choose from and helping you understand how to make it work. And it turns out that it was when we focused more on helping people move than building homes, you started to realize we could actually 4x the sales.
so this will be a question just to make you giggle, and this will prompt maybe my audience to read some of your books. But I kept trying to figure out what the equivalent of the dining room table was
Yeah.
relative to a job move.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So, so the dining room table story is basically that we found that one of the groups we actually focused on were downsizers. Basically people who have had raised their family in the house. It's now bigger than they want, and they want to travel a little bit more, and they realize like they got a lot of money tied up in the house, so they want to downsize to something smaller. Well, it turns out that one of the things they would say is they didn't want a dining room table. It was almost like we didn't want to do the holidays anymore. But it turns out if they didn't know where the dining room table was going to go, they wouldn't move. And so we actually added an option to add a small dining room area. And you found out to realize if they hadn't gotten rid of the dining room table, they would actually do that and increase our sales 22%. But the reality is that at some point it was just knowing that this was a barrier that was in the way, and we couldn't get rid of it. We couldn't help them get rid of it, but we could actually accommodate it. And so in the real world, or in what you find is so for example, in the work world, this whole notion of working in the office and working remotely, you
Mm.
start to realize that people really start to value their time when we started to work remotely. Like, all of a sudden the commute, which might have been 30 minutes, is an hour a day, is 5 hours a week, which is your workout time. And you start to realize that people aren't willing to negotiate some of those things. And so what you realize is that as an employer, you had, well, no, you have to work in the office. But if you could actually figure out how to build a hybrid position for that, you'd actually attract way more people than if you didn't do that. And so it's part of being able to understand that, like, everybody's trying to build a policy, like everybody's got to come to the office. But it's like, if you can actually be mindful about what are the meetings that are important to have when we're together versus the status meetings we can all do remotely, it doesn't really matter. It's the things when we're solving problems or trying to fix something that we don't know about, or thinking about something new. There's really good times to be together. And so the more you can be mindful of that, you can actually attract way different sets of people than if it's all about coming back to the office.
And it's interesting, Bobby, as that individual in that role, getting clarity about what their non-negotiables are is
Yes,
often one of the biggest challenges of really knowing what matters
that's
to
right.
you at that point in your life, the
That's right.
context of the moment.
That's right. That's right. I think the other thing is to teach them how to prototype, to realize that there is no perfect job and that every job is going to require trade-offs, and that you have to think about what are the trade-offs you're willing to make and the ones you're not willing to make. Again, am I willing to make less money to have to be able to work remote? It's a realistic decision.
And it's a trade-off
And
and
it's
a
a trade-off you
decision.
have to make. And it's like, well, if you want to make that much money, then you got to go in. It's like, okay, then here's how this works. And so you start to realize, like, the world is just full of trade-offs. And what we have to do as human beings is get good at framing these trade-offs and making them, because otherwise I feel like half the time we feel stuck in this world because we can't decide, because we can't give up either one or the other. And so this is how I reframe a trade-off as not a compromise, but it's actually it's a thing that helps me get unstuck. I'm willing to do this for a period of time in order to make sure that I keep moving. And that's where you start to realize that most people are stuck because they can't make the trade-off.
Bobby, I hope I don't slow you down with this, but I'm speaking to just all the years where I've dealt with the job seeker. And
Yeah.
a lot of times, I mean, you're really encouraging them to care a lot about why they changed their last job.
Yes.
And it's, for some reason, it's something that people don't want to think about. And you touched on it. If I'm in a get out quest mode,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just going to run for the hills, right? Can you just provide a little bit of background as to why it's so important to reflect on that last job?
Well,
And
it's more than just reflecting on your last job. It's actually reflecting on through your career, and it could go all the way back to your like school. And the way that I've kind of framed it, and I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong, but it's been most useful for me into helping others, which is you talk about something called energy drivers and energy drains. It's those things where you walk into a moment and a meeting or an exercise or doing some work, and you walk out with more energy than you did when you walked into it. Like, what are those things that give you energy? And then conversely, what are those things that suck your energy? And what you start to realize is that those things that, and trying to find the job, that most people have a job where 95% of the work sucks their energy for the 5% they love. And what I would tell you is you're never going to find a job that has 100% of energy given, because to be honest, you just burn out. But ultimately you need this balance. Like what I say is, if it's over 50% of the work you're doing is energy driving and 50% is energy draining, you don't even know you're working. You don't even know you're working. And so, like, part of it is the only person who's really managing your career, the thing that really shocked me is when I started early doing these interviews, is how much people counted on HR as their navigator for their career. And my thing is like, at some point, I feel that most HR professionals are set up to basically manage risk. They're there. I always say, if finance and legal had a baby, they would actually call that HR.
yeah, Bobby, I think it's sort of a legacy hangover from when we all went in personnel and left with a gold watch in 30
Yeah,
years.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Right.
You
Which
know,
that
it,
doesn't
it
happen anymore.
it's just something, a hat we put on that we think is still the way it was. There was a time where it did shepherd you around the
Yep.
building, but not anymore.
Yep. Yep. So let me I want to hit the other three quests. So there's get out is one of the first quests. It's like, and I would tell you, I had that job when I was in my 20s. Is like, oh my God, I'm in the wrong place. I gotta get out of here. And I literally found a place that was worse. And so it took me a while to figure out how to navigate that thing. The second one is, it's called regain control. This is where you really like what you do, but it's now consuming your life, and it's consuming your life that you're actually sacrificing other things in their life, like your health, or like your family, or like your your colleagues, whatever it is, you're sacrificing something. You're so focused on work. And it's like, if I could just go find a job that literally, instead of working 80 hours a week, I work 60 hours a week, it would be fantastic. It's like, not the work is bad. It's just, it's all consuming. And so I need
Bobby,
a new job to take a break.
is this when I have a new baby?
Could be when
Or
I have a new baby. Exactly.
okay, so it could be my total life that's out of control, not just the job though,
That's
right?
right.
Like,
That's right. But the life, but the taxing on my life it's almost like the distribution of my time has been shifted, and I'm not actually allocating it in the right way. And so ultimately, I blame work to doing it. And ultimately, the work is the place where you can actually find getting a more balanced job can help people actually figure out how to balance that out. And
I think
it could be having a baby, it could be taking care of your parents, it could be, having, a lot of kids at home, or basically transitioning to college. I mean, there's all of those things become opportunities for you to think about regaining control. So you feel like you have choice, and you can allocate your time in a way without feeling guilty.
Bobby, we have a large percentage of placers, people that come in to see us that are professionals looking to take a step back in some capacity
Yep.
like this. I never labeled it regain control, but
Yep.
that's a big part of it.
That was actually one of the working titles, is to take a step back, but it really is more about this notion of, it's not that they don't want to step out of the role. They just want the role to be more balanced, so they can actually live their life and not have to miss all the stuff they want to miss. They're missing.
All right, what's the third one?
Third one is regain alignment, which is a really it's a tough one, because what happens is, this is where you're in finance, and then all of a sudden they say, I got an opportunity for you to move to operations, and you go to operations, and then from operations you might go to sales. And you start to realize, like, I miss numbers. I miss what I really like to do. I feel like I'm not even myself. And they package it up as opportunity for you to grow, but you finally realize, like, you're almost out in left field, going like, what am I doing here? Like, this is not what I really like to do, and this isn't what gives me energy. Like, I've felt that I might have gained a lot of opportunity, understanding and knowledge around it, but like, I want to get back to what I really like to do. And so this is more about getting back to the things that you actually have core strengths in, and that you actually have capabilities in, and that gives you energy, because you're not doing enough of that right now. And so it's about regaining alignment back to kind of who you are and what you're about. And so you find a lot of people who have been fast tracked end up in a almost like on an island, going like, where do I go from here? Right?
Seen a lot of that in the big tech and the Magnificent Seven, that they
That's right.
came in as an accountant, and the next thing you know, they're a project manager launching some features, and how the heck did I get here?
That's
So
right. That's where you wake up and go like, how did I get here? What do I want? And the interesting part is, like, these people feel like they wear a mask every day, and they almost speak the language of the function, but they're not their words. They're not speaking their word. They feel like they're actually hiding, or have a like they're just not in the right place. They can't be themselves.
I think what's hard, it's because they love a culture or a boss.
Yes.
I mean, there was someone that just rocket shipped them along in their career, and then they're maybe gone, or the culture changed with somebody bought. I know
Yep.
I'm mixing metaphors here, but
Yep.
it always seems like it's okay until it's not.
Yeah. And you're not really, this is almost like metacognition. You're trying to think about, like, the job. You're not like, it's really taking a step back and looking at how you respond to these situations you find yourself in. And all four of these really kind of require you to take that step back. But ultimately, you have to realize, as your context change, as you have children, or as your children go off to college, or as you have to move, like, your context changes, all of a sudden that's going to impact kind of the fit of your employment, in terms of what you should be doing and maybe what you shouldn't be doing along the way. And so this allows you to kind of do that. The fourth one is take the next step. Now, this one seems kind of obvious, but it's actually really, really hard. Because what happens here is, next step is, everything is great. I love where I'm working. I love the people I'm working with, but it's not enough. I got to leave them to basically fill this urge I have inside me to say, like, I want to become a founder. Like, if I don't become a founder now, like, I'm never going to do it, because I can't do it when I have 3 kids. I got to do it now. And so you start to realize, like, it's simplified as take the next step, but a lot of times it's about actually taking the time to realize that it's like the now or never kind of move that you have to take because at some point, like if you can't do it now, it's never. And so it's really, really interesting because at some point, like there's a lot of times where it's like, okay, like somebody will bring you the next step. But the fact is you have to let go. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you have to let go of. The people that you work with, the maybe the topics that you're in, maybe the projects that you have. It's like a lot. This is what I call the habit of the present, which is the stuff that keeps you where you are and what you love to do. And if that's really strong, it's really hard to take the next step when all of that's going so great. And this is where people wake up 20 years later and go like, I'm still here, man. Why am I still here? Because at some point you got stuck.
So, question on the habit of the present.
Yeah.
And this is where your work and mine kind of intertwine. I find that metacognition, that active self-reflection is really challenging for people. You know, they're busy in their job at whatever level it is. They're dropping kids off at ballet. They got to get to the
Yep.
grocery store. They can't
Yep.
get the grass cut.
Yep.
Yet we want them, whether it's your program or my thinking, to stop and think about this.
Yes.
And I know in the study of this, you had to come across that, and just any words of wisdom about making the time for this, or however you want to address that.
Yeah. So I coached almost 500 people through a process that was derived from this, which is what the Job Moves book is about. And what you realize is that it requires a lot of self-reflection. So the first thing I would do is tell you to budget 90 days to do it. Like if you just got fired or you just got laid off or you're like, I would tell you like, you need to go find something to basically plug the hole, and don't worry about just go get a job, because you will not be able to effectively reflect on those moments because there's so much pressure on you. But ultimately, I would tell you either near the end of one year, at the beginning of a new year, take the time, take 90 days and just go through the process, right? The other thing is I would say to find a partner to go through the process with. What I would tell you, so there's a couple of things I've done to solve that. One is I've actually taken all the interviews, I've taken all the approaches, I've taken everybody I've coached and put it into an AI so it can actually interview you and ask you all the deep questions about kind of what gives you energy and what doesn't give you energy, and help facilitate you through the process. So I used to do this with people individually, and now I actually can talk. I can talk to them 3 times. Once in the beginning to set them up. They go through the process. I talk to them once they've basically done their informational interviews around prototyping new jobs, and then I talk to them at the end. And they have so much more self-awareness of who they are, what they're good at, what they suck at, what they want to do, what they don't want to do. That, like, what's so crazy to me is so many people who are doing this, they're able to walk into a position. Like I just had somebody the other day who I've been helping go through this, and they went in and interviewed for a job, and they basically said like, no, you're not good for that job. But I don't know what you're going to be really good here, but I don't even know what position is. Why don't you write a job description for us?
Bobby, I think what you're talking about is if someone takes the time to go through this process.
Yes.
They know themselves, yet they practice presenting themselves in such a way that shows up differently during the interviews, that literally creates opportunity for you because you're very clear about who you are, where you've been, what you want. And Bobby, I've said for years that someone quits a job on a Friday and then they interview on Monday. Inevitably, they blow that because they show up as ABC company.
Yes.
It's impossible to shed that in a weekend.
That's impossible. That's right. Exactly. And I think the reality is that the best person to help you manage your career is you. That's just that's the bottom line. And so most people are looking for easy ways to get around it. But if you look at the people who are actually very successful, they've got mentors around them. And ultimately it's the transparency of like, so one of the things I have people do is I have them do strength finders, and they'll say what their top strengths are. I'm like, no. I want to see the bottom 5. I want to know what you suck at. Because if you suck at these things, you've got to be able to tell people you suck at. So one of the things I suck at is harmony. Like it's like number 34 out of 1 to 34 minus. And it's like, I believe that innovation is a contact sport. We need to conflict and argue to basically come up with really good ideas. And if you tell me in my review that I need to work on harmony, you're literally neutering me from my actual, single most important, trait, which is how to innovate. And so it's like, and what I realize is these things is like, you have to start to admit you suck at these things and don't try to improve them. try to reshape the job so you don't have to actually do those things, and find other people who are really good at those things. So my business partner of 25 years is the exact opposite of me in Strength Finders. His top 5 are my bottom 5, and my bottom 5 are his top are his bottom 5 are my top 5. And we have figured out a way to work together that is just unbelievable. And nobody can actually understand it, but we realize that when it comes down to, for example, laying out the project and having everything timed in sequence, like I give it to my partner because he loves to do that. I literally it's like watching paint dry for me.
Well, mine is political awareness and savvy. That's always last for me.
Yeah.
So there you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, but this is where if they say to be more political savvy, then you can't be yourself. This is the thing is
So much
they're
for
actually a form of
authenticity, right?
trade-offs. They're a
Yeah.
form of trade-offs, and you have to realize there's times where you start to realize that you can't do it all, and you have to choose the things you really want to do, and how do you actually get more of that in your life? That's the single piece of advice I could give anybody.
So you touched on the 4.
Mhm.
It's a lot more to the book.
Yep.
How do you want to touch on
So
the other elements to give
so
people a
here's
reason to?
let me give an overview of the process. So one is you find the quest you're on, because it starts to tell you the context you're in and the outcome that you seek, and it's going to help you actually understand kind of what alternatives to look for. But the process basically has you, first of all, take inventory of your last couple of jobs or college, and say what activities did you do, not role did you play, and what title did you have, but remember very specific times where you actually got energy. And like some people start to do this and they do it at a weekend. And then I say, now, wait, I want you to take a week and just notice during the week when you have these moments. And all of a sudden there's like 10 more. And then all of a sudden I say, all right, wait another week. And you start to realize there's certain things that they actually like more than others, and that give them energy. So this is one of those reflective moments. But once you do that, you start to build out these dimensions of what gives you energy and what sucks your energy. And then you start to look at your past jobs and say, oh, this job was great on these 3 dimensions, but really sucked on these other 2 dimensions. And ultimately it got to the point of like, oh, this is why I love this job and this is why I hated this job. So it starts to help you understand where you want to go. And that there's trade-offs. Like this time I was willing to work a lot of hours because I was learning so much. And so I'm willing to give up, extracurricular stuff so I could go learn. But now
you
that
may
I've
not
learned
want
it
to
all,
do that again.
I'm not doing that again. And so all of a
Right.
sudden it's like, I want to leverage my knowledge. So it's like, I want a place that's challenging, but I don't need to actually go through the ropes anymore. And so you start to realize, oh, okay, here's how I do it. So the first step is identifying energy drivers and drains. Second step is kind of codify them and talk about what they are and how do your previous experiences line up with them. The third step is then going off and starting to prototype new possible positions. And what we wanted these to be is as wide, as broad as you can think of. And they're not jobs you're going to apply for, but you're going to go interview people who have those jobs and talk to them about what they do, and then start to superimpose yourself in that situation and go like, oh, I would really love this job for this and this is, oh, I hate that part of it. So like I was talking to somebody who was a neuroscientist, basically ran a lab, loves the analytical part, loves the science, and loves to travel. And so one of the things she looked at was like being a National Geographic coordinator, which would be like go to the Galapagos Islands and be a person who basically talks about all the wildlife on the Galapagos Islands.
I'm in.
And she found somebody and she interviewed him, and she realized like I don't get to influence the curriculum at all. I'm literally like a truce director. I have no control of my timing or whatever, and everything is about servicing the people who go on these things. He's like, I don't want to do this job at all.
Like I don't even go there. Right. I don't even get to
I don't
go
even like that. But what we end up doing is building a scoring mechanism to kind of say like, how does this score out? And you start to realize like as much as it emotionally pulls at your heartstrings for like travel and science and all these things, the reality of the job is so gruesome that you kind of go like, yeah, this is not for me. And so it's about learning and confirming kind of these energy drivers and drains. But these interviews are not interviews of like for a job. You're interviewing for informational purposes, and they're pretty easy to get. You can talk to friends, you can talk to people, go 1 degree on LinkedIn, but ultimately it also gets you back in practice of having interviews and talking about what you want to strangers.
Bobby, there were 2 things that I liked in really digesting that you're writing. One is the notion that we all feel a little slimy when we're networking for a job.
Yes.
But in reality, these loose affiliate connections are critical, and they're fine just the way they are as means of, practicing this. So I think that's really important because people do struggle. They do tend to crank up the networking when they're looking for work. But I think maybe more importantly, for 100 years, I've taught coffee clutch, go talk to someone, find out about the company, find out about the culture, find, uh, but in essence, it really was a way to stand out and hopefully get an in. This is different because you're presenting something that shows you as just really a different showing that really is impressive to that person too.
Yeah.
The research work you're doing makes you show up so different than someone's asking like, what's Culture Fridays like,
Yeah. Right. That's right. And ultimately, self-awareness is just a very attractive thing for employers. Knowing who you are, knowing what you're about, knowing what you want, and knowing what you don't want is critical. And I think like there's old school companies who don't want that, but I would tell you the modern companies that I work with every day, they want you to show up and they just want you to be you. And if you have to be somebody else, that's a lot more work to do.
All right. So anything else with the prototyping?
No, I think that's it. And then ultimately, then by the time you're done, you realize like I can. So most people feel they don't have agency, and this is the prototyping part is about giving you agency to realize like you might have been in finance and in a in a in a marketing company, for example. You're in finance in a manufacturing company. It's like, yeah, but you know how to do analysis. You like to see things in systems. You like to like all of a sudden, well, they need this over here in this business and they need it over in this. But you start to realize the core things you're good at are actually very universal. And you're
Okay.
not as trapped as you think you are because, again, this is the other phrase that I use all the time. People don't hire you because you know, they hire you because you can figure it out. Like the company that hires you because you know exactly what to do is like that, like that's only going to last so long because at some point everything we're doing is so new and there's so much going on. It's like I want to hire people who know how to learn. I don't want to know people who actually just have a bunch of knowledge, which is AI at this point.
You don't need that.
That's right.
Excellent point.
That's right. So it's fun. Like I use it as my coaching kind of platform to basically when people come to me and say, hey, I'm trying to do this, and mostly these are people I've worked with over the years, and they're like, I'm at a crossroads, I don't know what to do. I'm like, okay, let's walk through the process, and every one of them, like they end up kind of going through the process, and there's always a couple of big ahas where they realize there's something that they love to do, but they never had the way to articulate it before, and that's really part of the value of this process as well.
I love how you tell the Pixar story in the context of this
Yeah.
toolkit.
Yeah. So the Pixar story is once upon a time there was somebody who did something, right? Every day they did these things until one day something happened, which is the conflict. And
The
because of
fact
that,
that you can remember that is impressive.
and then they
I
could do this, and then they can do that, and because of that, they did this, and because of that, ultimately, so they could get to this final thing. And it's this notion of every Pixar movie has to go through this frame to make it a simple enough story to basically walk you through your life. And so I use that. Like I've been using that frame for such a long time. It's like it's second hat to me. That's why like I'm not really I haven't memorized it. It's just I use it a lot.
It's part of who you are and with the
Who
work
I
that
am.
you
Yep.
do. But it being on the opposite end of folks who struggle with the tell me about yourself question or any other, top 10 interview question, having it's the examples you give and hearing the results, it makes people's stories compelling, simple enough to be understood. But it's
Yep.
also supports that notion that we like people who know who they are and where they're going and what they're doing. It's a story you can hang your hat on and get behind as an interviewer and as someone who's hiring. It makes yourself, whoever you are naturally, it makes you more attractive to get hired.
Yep. Yep.
Obviously it's authentic once you learn it, right? It's just a way to package who you are along those lines.
So one of the cool things to me is like one of the the artifacts that we end up creating is like a one pager of the best way to work with you because you know so much about yourself. It's kind of like, okay, like, and so like, I just pulled mine up. So let me give you some examples,
Bobby,
right?
is that the personal balance sheet or am I
It's
mixing?
the personal balance sheet is part of it, but this is
Okay.
the thing after you've gone through the prototyping, it's kind of like, okay, like when I go to work with somebody, how do I hand them something that would say, here's the best way to help me help you? So for example, real problems with genuine stakes brought to me very specifically versus abstract requests with no problem or nothing to respond to. Like if you just say, so what do you think about the weather? I can't do that.
Yeah.
Like if you say like, hey, it's going to rain today and we've got all these things out. How do you suggest we bring it in? I'm like, okay, I can figure out how to do that. Like it's the specificity and the gap that you want filled is really, really important for me to know. And if you just want to have small talk, it's very hard for me to have small talk. I'm not good at it because I don't know where it goes and I'll turn it into something purposeful for me. Like, yeah, you know what I mean? It's one of those things where that's just how I operate. And so I'm not trying, I'm just trying to actually understand all the time. And it drives me to be curious. I'm curious and humble, which gives me this unique ability to kind of realize I don't know and I really want to know.
Bobby, I should have said this before. Most of this is available at jobmoves.com.
Yeah, there's a jobmoves.com is where kind of the book and all the resources are. I've actually turned this into an AI. So like, I think it's like for $150, you can basically join and it'll walk you through the entire process. It's called joinvocation.com. And then what we did is we actually found this data to be very useful for managers. So one is we're running a recruiting process based on this. So if you're trying to open a position, the first thing we do is we help you rethink the job description and reframe it as what progress are you trying to ask this person to help you make? And then ultimately it's a way in which to, once I know who you are and what your energy drivers and drains are, I can actually reframe the work. Like I need you to do these tasks, but it will frame it in words that will actually make it energy giving to you. And then it allows you to start to do reviews, not based on kind of goals, but the progress that's being made and the progress you want to make in the next quarter.
Oh, so you're touching on the fact that this is employee development turns into a retention tool very quickly.
Exactly.
If you're able to,
because if they're the right place at the right time and their context is going to change. And if you can't change with their context, they're eventually going to have to leave.
You know, I think that's a really important lesson for managers is that employees' contexts change. And if the person you hired 18 months ago, their why has shifted.
That's right.
Very much so.
And you just need to be aware of it. And and again, if it's not working out, it's better for you all to actually say like, this isn't working out. Here's what's going to happen. Here's what we're going to do next, as opposed to putting them on a PIP, all these other things. It's like at some point in time, like I sit down with the people I work with once a quarter. We talk about the progress that we made in the last quarter. I talk about the progress I made. She talks about the progress she's made. And then we basically sit down and talk about what do you want to do in the next quarter? And one of the things she highlighted was she really likes coaching. And I said, all right, well, I don't really run a coaching organization, but the reality is like, if you want, and I started to basically find people who are interested in coaching. And now I got a little coaching practice for her on the side. Because that gives her energy and it's not detracting from what we do. At the same time, it's helping her actually fulfill some of the things she wants to do.
Bobby, there's no doubt. I looked at this as president of a staffing firm and saw you putting labels to things that I've struggled with for 30 years, you having systems and templates and things. And I think you really do have a desire to have professionals use this just to mentor, to coach.
Yep.
It's pretty open source in that spirit, right?
That's
you
correct.
Want people to use this to solve this problem, if you will.
Yeah, I measure my life by the number of people I help, and so this is one of those things that I've put out there with all like, here's everything, here's what it is. I've created something that basically helps automate and makes it easier. But I got other people who helped me do it and design it and build it. And so it's got some cost with it. But the book is basically, I think the book's like $30. It should help you through your entire life.
So,
and again, it's not about money, just so we're clear. It's really about helping people make this progress. And I realize, so the question that I ask is like, I asked about homes. How many people want to move but can't? How many people want a new job but can't find it? It's like 50% of the freaking marketplace. It's crazy, the numbers.
Brother, it's where I was headed. It was, and I was going to say is, you even say it in the book. The book was written towards the tail end of the Great Resignation.
Yes.
And for about 5 minutes, the workforce kind of, I think, almost felt agency. Almost
like this,
like so close, right? Like you could, and then it kind of went right down the drain. We all kind of felt that. But I think the workforce and workplace realities of the times is that this is going to pendulum swing back and forth, whether the market conditions give you agency or not. But regardless, you are in charge of your own career.
You are.
And why wait to perfect times to get it when you can have it all of the time?
So one of the other things that's really kind of weird about this, and I'm not a big, manifestation guy, but the fact is what I realize is when people come very clear in what they want, it all of a sudden appears.
Oh,
Do you know what I mean? Like it's
that's
been in front of
the
them the whole time, but they didn't realize it. And
that's
so
the
it's like,
gist
how
of
do
the
you actually
secret.
realize, like, I want a job that does this and this and this? Is like, in the moment you start to speak about it, other people are like, I know somebody who has that job. And it's like it's the fact and it's more like the power of suggestion, I guess. But the reality is, like, when you become clear on what you want and you start talking about what you want, people are willing to actually help you figure out how to get what you want.
And that's not hocus pocus. That is really the truth.
Yeah,
And but it's hard for people. That's really difficult, It
it's work.
so hopefully you find it energizing, but can you just give people the framework of the jobs to be done,
Yeah.
kind of the broader thing? Because
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah,
we've
yeah.
anchored job moves well, but you could just tie it in with
Yeah, yeah.
really.
So my background is I have nothing to do with HR. I'm an engineer. My mom would tell you I was an engineer out of the womb. I was breaking things by the time I was 3. I was fixing things by the time I was 5. Not because I wanted to, because I just was so curious how things worked, and I was getting in so much trouble that I had to figure out how to put things back together. I ended up having 3 close head brain injuries before I was 7 years old. So I can't read, I can't write. I'm ADHD. I've got, I've got some neurological challenges.
But
I
you're a
was
whole hell of
labeled
a
as
lot of fun.
That was so much fun. It was so much fun. One was riding my bike off the garage roof and trying to do a backflip on the bike, and I didn't make it. It was the 70s. What can I tell you? Anyway, the long and short of it is that I learned that to be honest, dyslexia is the greatest gift I ever got that I don't wish upon anybody, because what it did is it taught me how to learn through questions. And so I'm one of those people who would ask you 100 questions about something because that's how I learned. And so I basically have honed and refined that. And as an engineer, I was taught I can do science, but I can't really do the English. Math is my first language. And when I started to build product, the way they taught me at school was just build it and they will come. Well, that's not true, and it doesn't really work. And so ultimately I had to figure out kind of what do people really want. And when I would talk to people, they would just tell me a bunch of aspirational crap, and I build it and they go like, no, 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 I didn't mean that. I meant this. And then they'd tell me more, and I failed for a long time. And so ultimately I went and learned criminal and intelligence interrogation methods, which basically helped me understand the true underlying motivations for people, to basically why they do what they do, and that nobody does anything randomly.
So the
And
point
in
is
that,
the big, silly market focus groups is not
oh
your
God,
jam.
just please, put a needle right in my eye and let me just go to bed.
Fair enough.
I don't want any part of that, because everybody's story is different, but in everybody's story, there's common elements. And so what I've realized is that there's 4 forces involved in anybody deciding to do something new, to change from one thing to another, to buy a new car, to basically to get married, to change the rice pack, the kind of rice you make for dinner, right? And it's these 4 forces, right? The first force is push. There has to be a push of the situation. We are creatures of habit. If the old way works and it keeps working, we will just keep doing it. So we need something to basically cause us to say, like, what, like, this isn't good enough, or, I can do better, or this isn't working. Any of those questions create space in the brain for a solution to fall into. If you see something and you don't have the space, our brains are full. It just bounces off your head. But the moment you actually inquire, you become curious, you believe that there's a possible way to be better, all of a sudden it creates that space. So once you have the space, you start accumulating data in that space. And all of a sudden it's like you start to see the pull. So you think about the outcomes that you can get if you have a new solution,
Is that
right?
why I see the car everywhere that I'm thinking about to solve my problem at that moment?
Exactly. The funniest part is you don't see a car, right? You drive by cars all the time, and then you realize your lease is due, or you just had a big repair bill, and all of a sudden you start noticing cars everywhere. Like, how is that
Yes,
possible? It's that
yes.
notion that created the space for you to now go like, I got to start registering because I know I'm going to have to buy a car soon, right? And then you start to think about, well, what can I do with a car? Do I want self-driving? Do I want electric? And you start to, but ultimately these are the features, and you need to abstract it, like, how will your life be different with a new car in your life? And it's about the outcomes you want. and those features that create those outcomes. It's not really about the features, it's about the outcomes. And so, and most people would say, oh, that's just pain and gain. It's really context and outcomes. Like, how are you better now that this new thing is in your life? Now, that's the fuel side of the world. That's the things that make you want to change. But on the other side of this, there's actually frictional forces. There's anxiety of the new. It's like, how much is it? What do I do with my old car? What's the
What do I
warranty
do
on
with the
it?
dining room table?
What do I do with the dining room table? All of those things become anxiety forces that basically of the new thing that you're kind of like, I don't know about this, and you have to resolve it. And if you don't resolve it, it literally keeps you stuck. So you've got all these push and pull forces trying to make you change, and then you've got these other forces of the anxiety, and then the habit of the present, which is the way I've always done it. And I have to go like, you mean I have to go to a different dealer? You mean I don't have to go to the gas station anymore? Like there's stuff there that causes you to go like, all right, where am I going to get my coffee, for example, if I go to the gas station and fill up and I get my coffee every time? Stupid little example, but the number of people who drive electric cars go like, I never go to the gas station ever. It's like, I stopped in the gas station the other day just to get a hot dog. I mean, so you start to realize like you have to give up on things. So there's this notion of fuel, which is push and pull, and then friction, which is anxiety and habit of the present that you have to overcome. And ultimately, you're really stuck. If you think about your career, you're really stuck because there's things pushing you to change. You think about what a new job would look like, but the anxiety of like, how do I get it? And the habit of like, but I really like these people. There's just a lot of tension in that system waiting for you to kind of figure out an alignment. And what Job Moves is about is building alignment so you can actually figure out how to navigate progress or not, or stop bitching about it. So like when I did the coaching, 52% of the people that I actually coached didn't get a new job. They learned to appreciate their current job better.
Bobby, I have found that people spend more time planning their vacation than they do their career because it's
Yes.
easier, and that when it
They have more agency.
comes down to the forces of change, most people will stay where they are.
That's right.
That's just 30 years talking.
And that's
So
and that's by the way, and that to me, that's sad because I feel like a lot of people could reach way more potential in their life and be a much better person in their life if they actually got comfortable at figuring out how to navigate the change.
amen. And that's why we're here and why we're doing this, to help people find a way to make those changes.
Yeah.
I think to understand that there is a process that they could follow that a mere
Yeah.
mortal could do
Yeah.
is really what this begins with.
Yep.
And, I've been coaching people on a Monday morning just based on my experiences, and to have a system like this makes a ton of sense. So certainly
Yeah,
advocating for
that's
it.
the engineer in me. It's like I don't the thing is I went into this like I have no idea what to do. I know it worked for me, but I don't know if it's going to work for anybody else. So let me go talk to some people. And so as I started to talk to people, you start to see the patterns. You're like, oh, we could do this. Oh, here's the conditions. Here's one situation. Oh, and you just start to realize the patterns kind of emerge out of it. And that's my superpower is building a method out of patterns.
So, Bobby, this may be where you're putting all your energy today, but you're always solving things.
Yeah.
What's giving you energy outside of this today?
Oh, so much. So much.
And by the way, while you're processing, do you have a favorite book of yours that you co-authored? Which one you like best? Might be an
Um,
easier question.
I think I think Job Moves is a very, very good book. I
Yes.
think the book on demand side sales, which is this aspect that everybody sells. And the fact is if you reframe sales as learning how to help people, you all of a sudden will realize you love to sell. You just love to help people. You don't like to sell things under the current way that people frame sales. And so I think that
Yes.
to me is one of those ones where like a teacher sells a lesson to a student
Yes.
and a doctor sells a diagnostic to a patient. And so ultimately, if they actually understood that their job is to actually help them make progress, they would talk to them completely differently. That's why I like that one.
I think it's a great one.
So I'm spending my time. I've got two kind of so I've got two startups and I've got two big projects, content projects. The two startups, one is Vocation, which is this thing around job moves and helping people I'm trying to be able to get to a million people and help a million people navigate their career. And so it's ultimately that's one of the things we're doing. We've started about 12 months ago. We've got about 100,000 people already, and we're headed in the right direction.
I love that
Um,
BHAG.
I'm sorry.
I love
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
BHAG. I
I gotta
love it.
help. The other one is so I have something on my bucket list of I want to help consumers be better consumers. That's like on my bucket list of like I want to help people just make better choices in whatever they're trying to do and things they're trying to choose. And so I've created a startup with a guy by the name of Andrew Glazer. It's called Swizzle, SWZZ. No, hold on. I got to look it up. I can never do this right. Hold on. I should know it. SWIZZL.ai. And it's basically a place where you can go to say, help me decide.
Okay.
And it's whatever you want to put in. Like it will help you find a car. It will help you find a vacation. It will help you find a spatula. And it just walks you through kind of the context and the outcome of the things that you're looking for.
All right, Bobby, we're coming up on an hour.
Yep.
Just a couple of fun questions to wrap us up. I do want you to explain to the world where you went from Bob to Bobby, but I would love to see, what advice you would give to your 7-year-old self. I normally ask the 21-year-old self,
Oh, yeah, that's
I
good.
think 7
That's
was
really good.
I think
really
7 is like, it might have been your peak there. So
I feel I was there was an intervention of some sort there that really helped. Do you want me to do both of them or just the 7-year-old one?
I think you like the complexity of answering them both at the same time,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I can tell it's good sport for you.
I would tell you the advice that I would give myself is to say, look, life is going to be hard. It's okay that it's going to be hard, but it's going to prepare you, and you need to actually navigate wherever you're supposed to be going and let the energy drivers and drains guide you to where you should go. And every time you find some place that gives you an energy drain, thank it for give some gratitude towards it for enabling you to know that that's not the place to go. And every time you find a place that gives you energy, have some gratitude towards it and lean more to that direction. And my belief, your life will turn out to be amazing if you just actually focus or become sensitive to what fuels you and where you should be going.
We should do a whole hour just on that comment, but thank you for that gift. It's right on.
And the Bobby thing really comes for two reasons. It started with my grandfather was Robert Crawford, and I'm Robert Crawford Moesta. And so he was called Bob. And when I was born, they started calling me Bobby. And he felt like that was not an appropriate name for somebody in business. And he didn't want me to be called Bobby. So when I came along, he changed his name from Bob to Bobby, and he kind of absorbed the name Bobby. And when I had my first granddaughter in July, end of July, and I realized like at some point in time, like nobody calls me by my name. Most people call me, they don't use my name. And so when I changed, and so I said, I want the baby to call me Bobby, right? Not grandpa, not Gigi, whatever it is. Like I want him to call me Bobby. And ultimately the fact is that as I did that, my kids started to call me Bobby, and I started to get more energy from it. Like literally instead of, hey Bob, it's hey Bobby. It's like just a different register.
So yeah, there's always a pre-show discussion, and you were oscillating about Bobby. Like you can tell, like it better fits you, right?
Oh, it resonates. The
context of where you are today.
That's exactly right.
Ties it back to job moves. My goodness.
That's right. And so it's about an energy giving name. It's a name I've renamed myself that gives me energy. So when you say, hey Bobby, what's going on? I'm literally already leaning up and leaning in. So
Bobby,
crazy.
You've got a lot going on. And as this initiative gets going, I'd love to have you back to talk about as you get closer to serving this million.
Yeah.
Would you come back around sometime?
I'd love to. Anytime, I'd love to come back.
Well, I think my audience got a gift, and we'll put a lot of this stuff in show notes. But man, thanks for bringing it, Bobby.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Chris. Yeah, there's no other way to bring it but this way for me. So I appreciate that you're willing.